Welcome to the Conscious Creators Podcast, where we explore the real science of manifestation. We'll take you from mind mastery to self mastery. We'll share the yogic wisdom and its relation to neuroscience. We'll also explore quantum science and its relation to meditation. It's going to be an exciting journey, so if you feel stuck or overwhelmed, this is the right place to be. Get ready to go from the internet to the conscious net because I believe this is going to be a mind bending journey and give you the possibility to unlock your full potential. Welcome again. So, welcome, Susie. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. And Susie is in Australia, and we have connected. I'm in California. We have just connected, and I want everybody to know about her yoga journey and what you actually do. So you can take it from here, Susie. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. So when I was I'm 58 now, and when I was probably in my early 40s, I really was feeling the trauma, and I had been feeling the trauma within my body of my experience of being um, a survivor of sibling sexual abuse. So it was
Oh,
within the family, and it was something that my brother of 7 years older than me used to come into my room and sexually assault me. Um, and it went on for many years. And then I pretty much just locked it in and chose not to tell anyone because I thought that my brother would get in trouble and that then I would get in trouble. And I was only 7 years old when it started. So it went on for 4 years. And there's this sort of trust thing that goes on when sibling sexual abuse occurs, because there is a power struggle, of course,
right.
one person being older, and then there's that secret. So it's very similar to any form of abuse where coercion and manipulation occur. However, when I was 32, I did confront him, and he was very sort of threw it away and minimalized it and basically said, well, I can't see how that would have affected you. So I started to believe that no, it didn't affect me. So I just sort of carried on. And then it wasn't until I was in my 40s, like literally when I turned 40, which, for all people, the big, decades of age become very big
Yeah.
landmarks, milestones. And I really started to notice that my body was physically affected by it. And of course, my mind was physically
Right.
affected.
Right.
And then, of course, my heart was very much affected.
Yeah.
So um, I started doing yoga, and I started to understand about how my body was releasing it, but it was also perpetuating it as well. Like, it was really causing a lot of conflict within myself, because I was just going to standard yoga classes where things were not, you weren't asked to do things, you were told to do things. And it was very much, the teacher has an agenda, she's got only, or he has got only, an hour to an hour and a half of time. And so, they need to get through. And I really felt that I was not really being addressed in a lot of ways. And there was that personal space being invaded by adjustments, and there was no questions being asked, can I touch you? And so that was really flaring up
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
The
my
triggers.
neck. Yeah, that's right. And it's
The triggers. Yeah.
and it wasn't until I was probably 45 that I decided that I was going to throw in my job, throw in everything, go to India, and travel to Kerala and do my teacher training in at Shivananda in Kerala, in Trivandrum. And then I started to really realize that, you know, this period of time that I'd taken off and just doing yoga on a daily basis, pretty much for 6 hours a day, that it
Right.
really was a way for my body to really accept it in a much more gentle way.
Mhm.
So, you know, accepting the fact that it is baby steps and not being pushed by the teacher or even being pushed by other people around me within the class, because there's that competitive ego streak that does arise, of course.
Right, right.
Yeah. So I got back from India about 6 months later, and then I started doing Ashtanga yoga. Even though I'd studied in the Hatha modality, I'd actually realized that Ashtanga, even though it was designed for 16-year-old boys in India, that, you know, my heart, I was pretty much like a boy. I was not a feminine woman. I wasn't connected to my heart, but it gave me a discipline every day that I had to get up, well, not had to, but I chose to get up at
Right,
the,
right.
you know, 4 to 5:30 every morning, travel to my teacher's shala, and then proceeding with a practice that you actually build on. And then I just started to noticing that menopause was coming on and things were sort of changing, and that, you know, literally, even though I was getting better, it wasn't as quick as I had hoped, because I'd never gone on to medication or anything, and I really was choosing to have yoga being my healing path of
Right,
how to
right,
get
right.
rid of my complex PTSD. So that sort of directed me into a very stern practice, if you could say that. It's
Okay.
quite, it's not there's not a lot of niceness about it, but you actually own the practice because you learn it and you progress on it. And so it became embedded into my mind, and it literally blocked out other stuff. So that was a great experience. And I was doing Ashtanga yoga for probably 10 years. However, I wasn't really coping with my family. You know, whenever I had to go to family events and I would have to pretend that I was talking to my brother, even though there was a lot of coercion going on. And it was like, you can't speak to, you know, not
Right.
that he wouldn't say that, but I felt like he would engage my attention the whole time I was at a family event. He had kids. He really didn't want me to talk to his kids or his wife. So it wasn't really until my mother died in 2018 that that's when I chose to go through the path of the legal way.
Ah,
And that was a
okay.
very big, what would I say? It was a conflict, because we're all taught
Oh,
that,
yeah. Yeah. It's a family, because it's a family, you feel like you're, going against the family, and there's so much, the society and all that stuff. Yeah. So you blame yourself for, a lot of things, the shame, blame, all that fears, all that gets triggered back. Okay. So yeah, of course, I mean, the healing wasn't done yet. So what part did you do
yeah,
any clinical? I thought I saw something on your website about the clinical psychology you joined
yeah.
or something like that.
So uh, um, I was realizing that I still needed psychology as well, or
Mhm.
psychiatry. I did go and see a psychiatrist, and she put me on some medication that very much helped with my sleep, because I hadn't slept in
Oh, okay.
decades, because my sleep had been interrupted by the abuse. So um, in a way, seeing a psychiatrist and also a psychologist, I didn't see the psychiatrist very much, because she said, you know, you're not mad, Susie. You actually, you know, you are, these feelings that are coming
Yeah.
up and the pain that's in your body. Probably 30 years ago, when you confronted your brother, they weren't really seen, but now, you know, the mental health industry is certainly acknowledging that PTSD trauma, complex PTSD
Oh, yeah.
in
Yeah.
the body.
That's what the chakras and the holding of that energy stuff is. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And
Yeah.
so then seeing my psychiatrist and also seeing my psychologist, I pretty much went in there with, I want to go down the legal way, because I believe that going down the legal way will also let him understand the impact that it's had on me, but also for the family. And now that the parents were passed, like my mother had passed and my father had passed, 10 years earlier, then it became a sibling thing, because we're all even and equal, because
Right.
we're all adults.
Right.
However, I was never really treated like an equal. I was always seen as the one that really sort of didn't succeed in, the medically minded family that we were. My mother was a pharmacist, my father was a banker, my uncles were doctors, my eldest brother's a dentist, so I've got engineers. The brother who abused me was an engineer. So came from a very smart family, and they couldn't understand why I couldn't even learn things after the abuse started to happen, because the guilt and the shame that you carry on your shoulders and through your chakra fills your head. And that's all your mind is thinking about, ways to hide it, deflect it. And so I was informed that I had to ring the police and make us, report it, and then proceed for a police station up here in Sydney, because I live in Sydney, but I came from Melbourne. That when I went to the police to report my abuse, it literally took 6 hours for them to get my statement, because it was literally, the weather was exactly the same sort of weather that it was when I was being abused. It was only in summer that I was abused.
Wow. Okay.
And it was hot, and the feelings were coming up, and I was literally going back to that place. But afterwards, it took about a week, and then my nervous system relaxed. It was as if
The
just,
release. Yeah.
yeah, the release. And just by talking to the authorities about it, and suddenly someone listening
Yeah.
and not dismissing it and not minimalizing it and not saying anything really. They were just there listening, recording it, and sometimes that's all you really need. But that was sort of 2019. And then in my
Wow.
police officers had a few conversations with me, and I had to ring up the police station in the area that I had previously lived as a child. And then we proceeded to, they call them I can't even remember the name, what it's called, but we recorded a conversation where I rang him, and I was given a police recording device to record him, because in the way that I had explained it to the police was that, yes, he said it was him, but he sort of saw that it didn't really happen. I mean, that it didn't matter really. It was just something that he did, and, forget about it, Susie. So the police were very smart in the way that they said, well, look, you really just have to have a conversation with him, because obviously he'll talk to you about it, but he may not talk to anyone else if there's a witness or whatever. So we need to, as he does, he coerces you, then you need to throw it back to him and coerce him into discussing it. So we literally had a 45-minute conversation in Melbourne. I had to fly to Melbourne to do the recording. And then right at the end, like, I literally got him to ask him. I sort of took it that because I'd done so much psychology sessions, I was starting to understand how to ask questions to get people to talk. And I do have that innate ability anyway, but having psychology and being able to talk about it was really giving me that confidence to be able to sort of not twist it, because it had to be the truth, but his way of just being able to freely talk about it as if it didn't matter. So That
Well,
was,
I mean, yeah, obviously, because for him it wasn't nothing wrong with it in his mind, right?
yeah,
So yeah,
well, that's
so
the way that he
it's
justified it.
right.
Yeah, yeah. Because
Okay,
in a
so
way, he has to
yeah,
live with his stuff. And so, you know, if he doesn't really take on that responsibility and be
exactly,
an adult and see me as a sister, not a, you know, an object,
right.
um, then, you know, he had to take that back. And in a way, just by me having that conversation with him and being able to control my emotions so that I didn't get upset. I
Uh-huh.
was just having a conversation with him. We were able to get enough evidence because it was a crime that happened.
So there was no, well, we won't get into the legality of it, but so what, how did you transform from that experience? How did yoga started releasing this
Oh,
energy that was pent up inside of you? And
yeah,
then, so then you started helping other people with that.
yeah, yeah.
How
I
did that
realized,
transform? Yeah,
sorry, Raj, I realized that I couldn't actually help anyone else unless I'd helped myself first.
exactly. Yep.
And I believe that that it has been, you know, I've been to many, you know, Yoga Australia is a very strong organization here in Australia, in Australia. And the Sydney, I started being involved in a lot of the yoga therapy because I
Uh-huh.
had studied yoga therapy here in
Right,
Sydney.
right.
And I'd been teaching for probably 8 years. So that's how I was able to get into it. And one
Right.
of the questions that they asked us when we were sort of in the first module of why we wanted to do the yoga therapy session or course, sorry, was that I had an epiphany one time when Richard Miller was here in Sydney, the yoga nidra. He's a doctor, he's also a
Uh-huh.
psychologist. And I had an epiphany where I literally had that light bulb moment where I was, well, Susie, look how yoga has helped you.
Right,
How,
right.
and knowing that, you know, I wasn't the only one that it happened to, but that became my driving force. It was that, you know, that moment of that light bulb of what, look, you know, the lived experience for you, Susie, gives you a foot in the door to be able to encourage others to
Right.
try to heal themselves in a way that is soft, kind, and not, you know, there's a lot of people who cut themselves,
Yeah.
uh, you know, self-harming. And so it became this very driven force within me just from my heart. It literally just, the moment that epiphany happened, my heart opened and it was like, oh, well, this is what, you know, I've been striving to find. And then I think also because I was able to get my brother into the legal system and get him charged, that also gave me, I'm like there's like a 11%. I know that you said you didn't want to really go into the legal, but there's like 11% of people who are survivors who actually do get their perpetrator charged and convicted. And so I was one of those small people. And so if I can add that to my story, then I literally, a lot of my clients don't even have to tell me that they're survivors. It doesn't matter whether you're a survivor. It doesn't matter if you aren't a survivor, but that ability for them to know that I already know how they feel and
Right.
that I assist them to help with their emotions as well, because I don't believe that um, you know, you're in a yoga class, there's 30 people, that you can give individual care to individuals who do fall apart or have a emotional response to yoga, because as you know, yoga can really, you know, it does unravel those
Yeah. Yeah.
segmentations in your chakras, in your, you know, your arms, your shoulders, your hips, you know, your head. And so that has been my driving force. And so because I am so open about it, that's why I believe that a lot of people look to me, because a lot of people are not as honest, and they may be survivors and they may be yoga teachers, but they haven't actually said, it's happened to me.
Right.
And so putting myself out there emotionally and mentally and physically has given me a pathway to help others.
One thing what I noticed about when you're talking about this,
Yes.
it's that you're not using that as your identity or to
No.
promote something. You're
No.
using that from a deeper part of you, from your heart, to help and support other people and show them. Let me show you a sign I have.
Sure.
Maybe I got this. Uh,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Very
So that's what happened to you. You became fearless. Once you face the fear and you start doing that, you get that fearlessness. And through that, you can start supporting other people. And that's the whole idea. You need to bring your knowledge, your experiences of life, and let people know that, okay, if I can do it. That was one of the same reasons that I uh, got into yoga. Actually, I'm not a yoga practitioner. I'm a yoga
no.
teacher, but I'm
Are
not a
you Indian?
practitioner.
Are you Indian, or are you Pakistani, or are you Bangladeshian, or what nationality are
No,
you,
I'm,
Raja?
I am from India.
You are from India.
And
So you
yeah,
are like you were put into Padmasana first time when you were born. You had the shaking with the shoulders and your grandmother moving you around. That's yoga in such
yeah.
a
Well, yeah,
scene.
for me, it was even a deeper. I understand this stuff because it was a deeper. My grandfather was a Hatha yogi. Now, Hatha
Oh,
yogi is different than the Hatha yoga, not the Hatha or the Ashtanga yoga, but he was a Hatha yogi, where kind of a stubborn Hatha means, the word Hatha means stubborn yogis. The guys in up north in India, they stand on one feet for so many years and they don't do all kinds of stuff. So they torture their bodies just to get over their mind, that kind of thing. So he did that, but I wasn't really into. My dad more of a karma yogi, but not so much into yoga. And for me, yoga did not come into play till about 2012, about 2012. So right after that law of attraction and all that stuff happened in 2006, after that I started going in that direction. My story is that I came to America for the American dream, to
yes.
have the cars and houses and boats and business and all that stuff. So I had success at a very early age. But then around 2008, I kind of lost everything. I lost my restaurants and, taxes and all kinds of issues. Went through the divorce and everything. That's when I started rebuilding my life. And so I went back to India, tried to figure out what happened. I mean, I just went through this whole life. Everything was working great. Then all of a sudden, everything disappeared. So how do I rebuild? And that's when I realized that the whole thing about law of attraction and all that stuff started in that Eastern theosophy of uh, that is what got me into yoga. And I realized that yoga has much more power than really what people know about just the asanas. And that's what got me interested into it, and I got deeper and deeper into it. And I've written about 4 or 5 books on some of this stuff. But it wasn't till a couple of years ago when my daughter went through this COVID stuff. Just like everybody else, she went through, and she really dipped very deep into the depression and all that. And she's still going through that whole thing of shifting herself out of it. And that's when I started, oh, you know what? I need to share this with the world, and I need to have people start talking about the true powers of yoga, because yoga, and that's where I really got fascinated with your stuff, that your story is wonderful, how you are helping with the trauma, trauma informed yoga that you are doing with other people. And what got my attention mostly was your tailor-made yoga. That line, I love that. I can't get that out of my mind. Tailor-made yoga. So there is so much power that
Mm.
if the yogis come together, if the
Yes.
yoga teachers were to come together and start talking about the true powers of yoga, because one of the things that I promote is, even like, for example, let's suppose if somebody comes to you for having a life experience in the past with this stuff, right? Some kind of a trauma that they won't. I mean, it could be a simple accident, or it could be anything, abuse they went through, or they could have had an accident, or they could have any kind of post-traumatic.
Environmental
Yeah.
issue like floods or fires,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So that, how that, and the healing is, of course, the first part of it. The
Mm.
healing, I mean, the acknowledgement. So my process is like it's a 7-step process. I call the 7 A's. First of all is awareness. Then the second step is acceptance. You have to accept where you are, and then you have to allow the universe to work, or yoga, or whatever system you're doing, to work through you, and then you can start rebuilding with the other steps. So that's actually what I learned. So in your system, what do you do, like your healing? And then I think it said about connecting and flourishing. That's your website said that, right? So how you help people go through that process? So what are the how do you have like classes, or is it an ongoing thing? How do you work with that?
So it's usually an ongoing thing. Most of my clients are private,
Uh-huh.
and some I go to their homes, because I also work with clients who are on the National Disability. Can't remember what INS stand for, but here in Australia, it's called the NDIS.
Okay.
And because I have found that the self-harming that comes with trauma, and especially child sexual abuse trauma, is that some of them have driven motorbikes into walls or smashed their hands so much that they've broken their wrist. And
Wow.
so
Okay.
that because the pain and the emotional trauma is so intense for them, that
Right.
that's a relief to, break
Mm.
something or cut something or drive into something. However, where the hope is that they wanted to go, but the universe didn't want them to go. So they sort of a lot of them realize that, wow, I'm being given a second chance. And
Yeah.
so that second chance is to address and
Right.
accept
Right. Right.
that it happened, because that energy of holding it in you
Right. Right.
benefit anybody. It doesn't
Yeah.
benefit the world, it doesn't benefit society, and it doesn't benefit the victim or survivor. I prefer to use the survivor word. The legal term is victim still. However, I see them as being strong, courageous survivors that have no guidance how to tap into that strength that they've been innately given by the incident that occurred that caused the trauma. So,
How much
that. Sorry.
how much if I were to take a twist in this conversation
Hmm?
and lean into spirituality,
Yes.
how much do you believe that your story was written in like a karmic blueprint, or it was meant to go through and for you to survive through this and blossom into this person of a teacher that you can start healing other people? So how much do you think it was coincidence, or it was meant to be and it just happened and you were the person, or it could be somebody else. What's your take on that, the spiritual aspect of it?
And the spiritual aspect on it. So there was this strong inside me, this strong strength inside me to go to India. That was the first sort of shift.
Okay.
And I never really realized why there was this thing inside me that was, I have to go to India, I have to go to India. And when I got to India, I never felt unsafe. I really felt like I was being led
Okay.
through India, meeting people, not really having a plan. I sort of hit the ground running, but never really had a plan. But each sort of week I'd go, okay, well, I'll go to this country, I'll go to this town and go to this, and just kept doing it. And then it wasn't until I got back from India and I'd been here and my mother had passed away. And there was some photographs that my mother had, and they were my father's, but my mother had kept them, of course. And it wasn't until my mother's passing that I was able to go through this box of photographs with my eldest brother, not the brother that assaulted me, the other brother. And we suddenly, we went on to ancestry.com and we went through a lot of our ancestors on my father's side. And we didn't actually realize that my grandmother, my paternal grandmother on my father's side, I don't know what the word is, but she was half Indian. Her mother was
Oh,
Indian.
wow. Okay.
So you can imagine arriving in Australia in the early 1900s, and Australia, I've never suffered racial tension. I've always looked a little bit different. I look a bit, I've got the almond eyes, I've got dark, I've got green eyes. I'm not a Susie Taylor as you would sort of look at, I'm not white, and I'm not a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, even though I was born that and raised that. So I always felt never really part of the family. And then when I discovered this, and my eldest brother discovered it as well, it opened my eyes up to so many things, because then I really felt that there was a lot of ancestral
Wow.
purpose coming through me, that this had happened to me for a reason, to bring it up, that this is a generational thing, especially when it happens within the family. And if you're a lot of perpetrators have also been abused, so they become very hard-hearted and they don't take it on that what they're doing, the abuse to the other person or to anything, is bad, because that's what happened to them. So they see that it's not something that's incredibly important. It's just like, oh, what happened to me, I got through it, then it's going to happen to you. So feeling that ancestry sort of push, it really made sense of why India was very important, because in looking back on it, I was probably the only ancestor that had gone to India in
Right.
respect, even not knowing that the respect was there, but just acknowledging that India was a beautiful country, a beautiful society, and that it's rich in so many ways, where here in Australia,
So it's
the
like a calling. So yoga probably like a calling in your DNA, basically somewhere. So it then finally till you found it, till you
that's
find
right.
it.
The
Yeah.
seed was by just being
Okay.
born. And that seed, it was as if, and that's that magical thing about what you were saying about energetically, there's this force that comes from yoga, and it's not like you can see it. It's not, it's not something you can touch, but you feel it here. And I think
Right.
that's the beauty of yoga, that it actually connects us to ourselves, because modern man is so disconnected that
Yeah. So yeah, that's one thing that my passion is to promote yoga as a technology of consciousness. So if you really get into the spiritual realms of the things, your consciousness is the one that is experiencing through your body and mind. So your body and mind is just an object, just a tool, like we use the cell phone to connect, right? Right, like right now we are connected, there is energy between us, but there is no wires, okay? So
No.
that energy, we learned how to harness the power of that energy, right? But in future, in the very short few years, I see that we will use yoga as a technology where we use the body and mind. So we do have the powers of the levitation and all that stuff is there. The yogis in India do that. But because we don't believe, and our brain has been so much conditioned to believe the limited mind. There are movies now, the Limitless and Lucy and stuff like that, Matrix, those kind of movies are talking about it, but they use the pills or some
Yes.
kind of drug to
Yes.
enhance that. But actually, yoga releases that Kundalini energy and all that. So there is a real true science to this stuff. And I went back to India and I learned, and I've had such amazing experiences that I mean, if I were to tell those things to an average person, they can't even fathom that this kind of stuff could happen. And I mean,
That's right.
there is such absolutely so much. So like right now, people who want to create the life that they want, or they want to manifest this thing, and so I talk about, so now I talk about going from 3G to 5G. Your cell phone, I don't know if you guys are using the 3G or 5G right
We
now.
use
5, see, so you are advanced. So I use that as an analogy of that. So in the manifestation or the coaching world, we use the 3G, used to be the psychology first, no, physiology. We always talk about the body. Then we started using the second G was this psychology, and then neurology, right? And so now we are into the quantum science and all the cosmology part of it. So the universal world and all that stuff, the spirituality, now it is starting to take a turn, and people are starting to talk. So there is a lot of people talking about the brain, rewiring the brain, and neurogenesis and all that kind of stuff. But in reality, the body, the mind, and the spirit, the spirit is the one that controls all your experiences. So talking to you makes me go back and think that the spirit actually knows your journey, that you were going to go through this stuff, and yoga is going to be your gift that is going to bring out and help others. And obviously, by you, the more people you help, the more it helps you to grow and to flourish. That's the thing, because we always benefit out of, we grow when we start helping other people grow. That's, we learn more things when we, like me talking to you, I learn more thing about myself then, like when you talking, so many things open up in the mind and the subconscious mind, it comes up and all that stuff. So
thank you.
I'm very passionate about all that stuff. So yeah, so what is the process, where are you planning to take this to the next level? What is your next level that you planning to take your practice?
So the way that I found that the asanas do actually help to connect to the mind, to shut that mind down. So a lot of my trauma-informed yoga clients are very much, they have no confidence in their body. So to slowly let them understand that, even a downward dog is a relaxation pose. But first, when you first do a downward dog is not a relaxing pose. But when you you've done yoga for as long as me, and asanas for as long as me, and an Ashtanga practice as long as me, it is the most relaxing posture to sudden, but people are like, no, laying down is the most. It's like, no, Shavasana is not. It is a relaxing pose, but to be able to let your spine just relax in that inverted way is,
Right.
it's incredible to even have the coccyx of the spine up in the air and have your shoulders below you. The way that the spine and the nerves all start to relax, the nidris all start to relax. And then literally it does take them a while, but I think it's about 6 months that it really starts to, the egg cracks.
Uh-huh.
And so it does start to make sense.
Yeah.
And the memory is there. So it's not, the trauma usually is filling the mind and blocking the mind. And then through the asanas, by just slowly taking them when you see that the body has changed a bit, and just asking them to just take it a little bit further. A little millimeter is like a mile when it comes to
Right.
the
Right.
body. And then they start to trust their body. And then when they trust their body, then they trust their mind to be able to say, well, what you've been telling me about, I'm the bad person, I'm the shameful person, it was my fault that this happened to me. If that all starts to just break away, and that strength becomes into their mind for them to be able to flourish, because a lot of them are hiding in their homes, hiding their abuse from their partners, um, you know, being angry with their children for no reason,
Yeah.
but
It
because they've
manifests.
been.
Yeah, manifest in so many different ways. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And so I, you know, I will never say that I am healed, because I always believe that there is always more healing to do. That's that flourishing side that we were discussing earlier. But that ability to trust, and because trust has been taken away from me and a lot of survivors, to trust themselves is one of the mind-blowing experiences that they have. And you can see it in their face, and even in the structure of their bodies. They just become softer. They're not so tight and tense. They just become much more fluid in their ability and their
Mhm.
actions, and how they talk to people. You could just see it. And even the way they walk, suddenly they're feeling that sort of, oh, it's okay to walk through my hips now. And as opposed to, oh, the abuse happened in my hips. That's not what I really want to feel. And so that ability to go within themselves and just say, it's
Yeah.
okay, is part of my journey too, because I still see a psychologist once a month, and I
It's a
still have
release.
sometimes.
Yeah, well, it's a release through the body as well, because
Oh,
you release the mind is released, and then you are starting to get into the flow. You connect with yourself, your deeper parts of you, and I think it shifts the energy, and so your walk shifts too. You're talking, you're walking, you are walking the walk now. You're walking the talk. What, however they say it, right? So you
yes.
start feeling the lightness, that heaviness from your shoulders, from your whole body is kind of, what's the word, dissipated.
Yes, that's the word. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like
okay,
it's
all right, we'll
like
go with that. That's
it's like one day you wake up and you've been feeling all this pain for 6 months, and then suddenly you wake up and you feel lighter,
yeah.
and you feel like a whole burden has been released from your, the shoulders. And I mean, I've got very broad shoulders, and I'm sure that, God had a plan. He gave me the body, the strong body
Yeah.
and the strong shoulders to be able to carry that burden, for me to get to the other side where I am now, to be able to also have those strong shoulders, but not for my perpetrator, but for my other
Right.
clients who I understand how they feel. And I think that's,
Okay.
the big plan.
I think I just got an idea for our next podcast one of these days.
Yes.
Is a couple of things. First, how do we shorten that time period, of the healing? And that's the number one. That's the conversation I'd like to have some other time. But
Yeah.
that part of it, then from that perpetrate, what's the word you perpetrator, the
Sorry.
perpetrator, the person
The,
who did that to you.
oh, the perpetrator.
Okay, my
Yeah.
English is my second language.
No,
Sometimes
no, that's all right. Yeah,
long.
sometimes I don't like to call him my brother. I do swap between it because it is a very,
Yeah,
it's a delicate spot. But at the same time, I do have to use that word perpetrator because I am in the legal system now,
right,
and
right,
to
right. Yeah,
put it back to
yeah.
perpetrators that you are a perpetrator. Yeah.
So on that part of that, the healing for that person,
Mm,
whether they are in whatever system they get thrown into, how does
mm.
that comes into play, and how strong you feel to forgive, and what that does, and what that carries, what weight that would carry on you? That's a question that I'd like a subject, maybe how that feels, your thoughts about that. Look,
Yeah.
because looking at a bigger aspect of the things, of the spiritual mentality of, we are saying, okay, we are all one, we are all same family and all that stuff. And yes, somebody has done harm to you, very, very, very hard to release, but somewhere along that line you find your strength when you
Mm.
that whole cycle gets completed. And I mean, of course, other, I don't know how that would play out, and what would be. Have you ever wondered about that, or does those thoughts flow through your mind?
So I have discussed this with my psychologist many times that by going down through the legal system, it sort of took away my fight, that anger, that there was a lot of anger, and I understand that with most survivors there is an anger, and to be able to release that anger, suddenly I was sort of treading water, going,
Or like
what
a
what do
postpartum?
I do now? Yeah, because that had been my force inside me, my
Yeah,
driving force would get me up, that would stop me from, taking my own life, all those sort of things that
yeah,
go through, and I have gone through those thoughts. Um, and then suddenly one day, it's as if I just woke up and said, well, I feel sad for my perpetrator now. And
yeah,
so to sadness for somebody who has done such
yeah,
terrible things to you, there is that softening in your heart. There is that sign of forgiveness. Now,
yeah,
forgiveness is a lot different to forgetting. And I think a
yeah,
lot of people think that if you forgive, you forget. And that is a very, you forgive and you forget. You don't ever forget, but
yeah,
you can forgive. And by forgiving is drawing you more closer into your heart, because that is, you got to forgive yourself at the same time than when you do forgive your perpetrator.
yeah,
And forgive yourself
yeah.
is
That's the true healing. Yeah, the true healing has to be both in the whole full picture. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's wow. That's amazing, amazing stuff. It's. I mean, I applaud you for what you have turned your life around, and how you are using that weakness as a strength, as a force now to help other people. That is amazing. That's amazing. So
Mm,
wow, that's
yeah.
my
Well, that's
mind.
what I say every
Yeah,
day. I just, wow is one of my very favorite words to use, because when, as you earlier mentioned about that sort of, the healing within that comes, there's magic that happens as well. And when
yeah,
you start to notice the magic within yourself, then
yeah,
you do notice magic outside and all around you. And I think that that's, society could be making things really soft on themselves and being really kind to each other. I think, the world is really reaching out for kindness
Yeah,
now, and I do
it's
believe that
shifting. Is
it's
starting to
shifting.
shift. Yeah, yeah. Collective consciousness, I think, is starting to come into play. People are
Yes,
realizing that, what goes around comes around actually. So it's better me be nice to you and you be nice to me. And that is more fun than all this terrorism and fear tactics and all that stuff. So, and not only that, but I think the universe itself has a way of evolving, because with the internet coming in, people are self-educating themselves and all, lot of there. So there are people obviously talk about the conspiracy theory and all that kind of stuff is there in the back end also. But you have limited time in your day, and your mind can focus only on one thing, and whatever you focus on is going to become your reality, right? So we know all this science now. So now people are starting to focus more and more on the positive side and starting to come together. I'm starting to see a lot of that stuff as well.
good.
People are starting to share, help each other, be open about their stuff. And that,
That's right.
yeah, it does. I think really, if we go deeper and look at uh, the microcosm and macrocosm, right? So if we
Mhm.
are as human beings and we create the universe, or we as human beings need to heal themselves, but not only that, the planet also needs. And because we have abused so much of that stuff, now I didn't used to see it that way, but now I am starting to see, right? Like when my grandson, this year was a good year. My son had a baby boy, so I'm a grandpa now. So that
Yeah,
when I start looking at that stuff, their future and how they are going through the stuff, I'm starting to think that, wow, yeah, I need to start doing something now while I can, while we can. So it's been a great journey. So,
yeah,
well, we'll have to do this again. We'll have to plan on come up with some kind of topics and then do that again. That would be very exciting. And
yeah, that would be wonderful.
yeah,
Been great.
I'm going to India this January on the 7th. Yeah. So
Lovely. Okay,
I'm
wonderful. For
going
how long?
I'm gonna for 21 days. I'm going for kite flying. There is a kite
Oh,
flying festival on 14th of January. So
yes,
that's what they say that I forget the word they use, where the shift of energies, the summer solstice, or no, winter solstice is what they
yes, okay,
winter solstice. So
yes.
there is a shift in energy that happens on that particular day, on 14th of
Oh, okay.
January. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it might be a little bit here and there, but on that particular day, so everybody flies kites, and there is a lot of competition and stuff going on. So it's a big event in India. It's celebrated in very different ways. So I wanted to take my daughter to experience that, and I've been meaning to do that for a long time. But now I think time has come. So there I
Time
am.
has,
Sis. I'm
yeah.
looking forward to that. So
Wow.
yeah.
Well,
And
let's catch up after you've done all that because Christmas is on, and
oh
here in
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
hot. You're in California, so it's always hot, but it's really, I mean, we're having a very hot spell. We've got a lot of rain coming through, but we've had a lot
Oh,
of
is that right?
heat. And Sydney is really buzzing at the moment. You can feel that energy is starting to wind up. And the greatest thing about yoga is that um it keeps you separate from all that, but
Uh-huh.
it allows you to be able to look at it and just go, well, just take a step back from it, because you don't want to get caught up in that roller coaster of, rolling energy, Christmas, New Year's, fireworks, all that sort of stuff, all going off in Sydney. So, yeah, that would be really lovely if we could catch up again and have a great chat, because it's been very exciting talking to you, Raja.
All right, right. Yeah, nice talking to you. So thank you for the time. I appreciate it. Okay. And
I
I
appreciate
talk to
it.
you soon.
All
Happy
right.
holidays if I don't get to talk to you then.
Yeah. Happy
Okay.
holidays
All
too,
right.
and in
Namaste.
India.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Into another enlightening episode of the Conscious Creators podcast. We hope you found inspiration and insights that will empower your life journey. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this podcast to help spread the wisdom so it can reach more seekers of truth and transformation. Your engagement really fuels us. Stay connected with us on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and download our app or join our thriving community. Remember, between where you are and where you want to be, the only thing that comes in the way is your mind. It's all about going from mind mastery to self mastery. Until next time, namaste.